Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Broxtowe series, 10 parishes with an industrial past running along the western fringe of Nottinghamshire. Where are we today, viewers? Welcome back to Broxtowe again, everybody. Now then, rock formations. We don't see very many of them on this channel, and the reason for that is they tend to be in out-of-the-way places, like in caves or on cliff edges. Well, this one here behind me is neither. You can find this on the edge of a large town here in Broxtowe. Feast your eyes on this. That is known as the Hemlock Stone, and you can find it in the parish and the town of Stapleford. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Stapleford, ford marked by posts. For the second time on TVI, we're in a place called Stapleford. Last time we were in Lincolnshire in a tiny village close to the A46. This time we're to the west of Nottingham, and the two places are like chalk and cheese. Their names though mean the same thing. Lincolnshire's version referred to a ford on the River Witham. Here in Nottinghamshire, the river in question is the Erewash, which forms the county boundary with Derbyshire. It was thanks to that river and the River Trent that Stapleford was able to grow. It was a vitally important settlement for trade. Wool, hides of beasts, wine, corn, grain and other exotic or foreign merchandise were transferred, carried or conveyed to be sold right here in this town. The area also expanded in the late 18th century when the stocking hose trade thrived in the East Midlands. Evidence of this history can still be found today, with some original stocking knitters' houses still standing alongside the more modern properties and shops. In a way, it's almost like Nottinghamshire's answer to Derbyshire's Sandy Acre, which lies on the other side of the Erewash. It's famed mostly for the 200-million-year-old Hemlock Stone near its northern boundary. Parts of Stapleford owe their existence to the French as well. Without them, there wouldn't be a town centre. Let's walk and discover why. We start at what is Stapleford's biggest and most well-known landmark. This is the Hemlock Stone on Stapleford Hill. An outcrop of new red sandstone, this is approximately 200 million years old and dates back to the Triassic period. The stone is what's known as an inselberg, an isolated rock or ridge that rises abruptly from a virtually level surrounding plain. It has two distinct parts. Black grime from industrial air pollution coats the Nottingham Castle sandstone that forms the upper part of the rock, whilst the Lenton sandstone below is clean. The Hemlock Stone is approximately 28 feet high. Well, there can be no doubt about it. If you come to Stapleford, you can't really miss this, can you, as you drive past on the road? The Hemlock Stone is well worth coming to see. I know it's early in the morning and it's not very nice weather-wise at the moment, but even so, the Hemlock Stone is still very much one of those landmarks that stands out like a sore thumb. Right, now we're going to move into Stapleford town itself. Now this is a big place. It's going to take me at least 3 hours to walk around it. I'm not going to walk around all of it because it's, as I said, very, very large. We'll take a drive down into the town and then we'll get cracking. There's loads to see in this one. The Hemlock Stone is located right on the northern fringes of the town, and what this little drive aims to do more than anything else is to show you a few examples of the urban sprawl between it and the town centre. At 2.5 hours long, today's main walk is lengthy enough without trying to catch every last little bit of Stapleford. As we drive, here's a few facts about the place which I won't be able to squeeze in elsewhere. First of all, Stapleford has only been a parished area since 1987. Previously it was paired with the town of Beeston, and together the two formed the Beeston and Stapleford Urban District from 1935 until 1974. Before that, it was within the Stapleford Rural District. Yes, rural. The place can't be considered rural any longer, that's for sure. The local MP at the time of making this video was Darren Henry of the Conservative Party. Several notable people hail from this town, including many sporting figures. They include footballer Dave Watson, who was part of the Sunderland team who beat Leeds United in the 1973 FA Cup final, and football manager Tom Johnston. Cricketer Frederick Randon was also a Stapleford native. The locals here often refer to the town by a rather interesting nickname, Stabbo. It's not known when or where this originated, and thankfully it doesn't seem to be connected to any sort of violent crime. The local newspaper, the Nottingham Post, have suggested previously that Stapo might have initially been used as a contraction of Stapleford, and that this over time became Stabbo thanks to the local accent. Despite being one of the largest towns in the Nottingham area, Stapleford has no station. The closest with a regular service is at Beeston, which provides connections to Nottingham, Derby and several other locations across the East Midlands. Finally, there are also 17 listed buildings in this town. Let's get out of the car now and go and find some of them. Our walk begins on Pasture Road, which runs in a north to south fashion along the western edge of Stapleford before becoming Church Street at Hickings Lane. Landmarks in this area are sparse, but there are some local businesses. Here's Sannyshaw, who manufacture pharmaceutical products like needles and bottles. Next door is Albany Junior School, one of 6 primary schools in Stapleford. This route will pass most of them. A few steps later and you find yourself outside Burns Garage as Pasture Road starts to come to its end. So far, nothing terribly abnormal, you'll agree. That's the case for the next road too. After passing the shops at the junction of Pasture Road, Church Street and Hickings Lane, we turn left to head towards a park. In doing so, we pass a bus stop. This one is served by the number 18, which runs directly into Nottingham city centre. In times gone by, the area between Hickings Lane and Pasture Road was dominated by Stapleford colliery. To look at Hickings Lane now, you'd likely never guess. There was a second mine in Stapleford too, at the junction of Hickings Lane and Ilkeston Road, which was worked by George Hewitt. Now we're about to pass through Hickings Recreation Ground, and this has plenty of sporting features to talk about. For starters, this is where Stapleford Town Football Club play and train. The club was founded in 1972 and has been playing in the Long Eaton Sunday League ever since. This sports ground also features the local bowling green and otherwise has a nice array of play equipment and open space for the locals. It's a nice spot all in all. Once through the park, we hit Wesley Place with its imposing 3-storied brick and render flats. It'll take us to a chapel. There were once many non-conformist places of worship in Stapleford, but the oldest is the former Wesley Place Chapel on Nottingham Road. The chapel stands close to a former field in which John Wesley himself preached to the people of Stapleford in 1774. This area was anciently known as Gilling's Cross, and it's defined by the junction between Nottingham Road and Pinfold Lane. On the latter, we have Stapleford Fire Station. This forms part of the Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Services South Group, which also includes major places like Arnold, Carlton and West Bridgeford. Alright, so now we're beginning to hit the more major landmarks as we come to Church Street. This is a continuation of Pasture Road to the south. First up on here we have a pub called the Old Cross, which was last refurbished in 2014. Sports teams are popular here, with several, including Stapleford Town Football Club, representing this pub. It's apparently haunted too, and even offers ghost tours of the cellars. Its name is a reference to the actual cross over the road in the churchyard. This is Saxon, dates from 700 AD, and it's believed to be the oldest Christian monument in the Midlands. Dedicated to St Helen, the church is the only Grade 1 listed building in the town. Its origins are medieval, although its clerestory was later added in the 15th century. In 1785, a classical porch and doorway was added to, and a gallery was erected across its west end. Some repairs were carried out in 1819, but in 1875 a major restoration was undertaken. The work carried out included the removal of its brick buttresses and the underpinning of its walls. The whole thing cost about £1,500. The architect was surprisingly not Hodgson Fowler, instead it was W.H. Parkinson of Leeds. Around the church there are plenty of communal buildings. I don't know for sure what this little brick structure is, but given the cross upon it, it is in all likelihood the church hall. Over the way is an early years playgroup and preschool for the youngest of Stapleford residents, and next door to that is the Young People's Centre. This provides the local youth with music, dance, art, sport and adventure, as well as all the usual youth club activities such as pool and table tennis. It even has a coffee bar. We return to Church Street now, where we take a quick look south towards the town centre. Now, to get round Stapleford town centre, we're going to snake our way around it because there are lots of little alleyways and cul-de-sacs which I do probably need to catch, as well as all the stuff on the main drag. First of all, we're going to head down Church Walk. If you look across the road here, that's the old cross pub just there. There's a path there. We're heading down that path towards another street, and then we're going to come back on ourselves and eventually come out there next to the health centre. On Church Walk, you pass the back of the Stapleford Baptist Church. We'll get a look at the front of this shortly on a different street. At the end of the path, look left and you'll see the town's Aldi store. This is the biggest supermarket in Stapleford, but it does also have a Sainsbury's on Derby Road. The tall building opposite is Cambridge House. This was an office block at some point in the past, which has now been converted into 42 residential apartments. Its bright white and blue colour scheme and location on a hilltop makes it one of the most recognisable buildings in the entire town. To the corner of Albert Street now, where we find the massive Whiteley Mill. This is now a hotel, but as you can probably tell, it certainly didn't originate as one. Information about its history is scarce, but in broad terms, Whiteley Mill was owned by Whiteley Stevens and was one of Stapleford's industrial powerhouses. In the late 18th century, the stocking hose trade thrived in the Midlands. Like neighbouring Sandyacre, Stapleford was a major player when it came to the manufacture of lace. Much of what was produced in this factory was later sold at the Lace Market in Nottingham. Elsewhere on Albert Street is the same Baptist church whose rear end we've already admired. The front ain't bad either. At the end of the road we find ourselves on Church Street again, and in front of us is the Stapleford campus of Nottingham College. This provides specialist facilities for students with a range of physical disabilities and learning difficulties. It was originally the Stapleford Board School. Its most famous former pupil was Arthur Mee, the author of The King's England. Born in Stapleford in 1875, we're familiar with Mee already, having mentioned him in several previous episodes. Bang next door we have Stapleford Library, whose brutalist concrete facade is straight out of the 1970s. In stark contrast, over the road is a large multi-use healthcare centre, which has a mental health unit and a cafe on site. Brand new, this replaced a walk-in centre which opened in 2006. Approaching the end of the road there are two pubs, but this one stopped serving pints a long time ago. It's the former Feathers Tavern. It was a Shipston's tide house and was in decline during the 1990s, despite being a popular haunt for many. It eventually closed in 2009 and it's now flats. And there's another pub directly opposite. It's called the Old Rock, and the name of that one should be pretty obvious. It's a reference, of course, to the Hemlock Stone. In fact, if you look at the logo, you can see the Hemlock Stone. There it is right there. It's the Old Rock. If you head up Nottingham Road from the junction, you'll be met with another pub, the Horse and Jockey. This one, in theory, should be the best known in the town. In 2022, it was named as one of the best 4 pubs in the entire country by Camera. Quite the accolade. Next, we return to the Crossroads, which, by the way, is the junction of Nottingham Road, Derby Road, Toton Lane and Church Street. Locals know this square as the Roach. Its name is French. Prisoners from the Napoleonic Wars were set the task of cutting through rocks to create roads here. This was referred to as La Roche. Next we have Derby Road, upon which most of Stapleford's shops and businesses are located. Stapleford owes its development not only to the French, but also to its location. The proximity of the rivers Trent and Erewash allowed the town to become a point of trade. So it remains today. Partway down this long main street is a paved memorial square. This was opened in August 2000 in memory of Lance Corporal Walter Parker, a Stapleford war hero. He was awarded the Victoria Cross for his actions at Gallipoli in 1915, carrying water and supplies through a barrage of machine gun fire. Parker survived the war and returned to Stapleford. He died in 1936 and he's buried in the cemetery, which we'll come to later. Overlooking the square is the Stapleford and Bramcote Conservative Club. This is well known for being friendly and welcoming, and also for its 2 full-size snooker tables, which take pride of place inside the building. It's also used as a meeting place for local issues such as flooding. Local MP Darren Henry chaired such a meeting here last November. As we continue south towards the Erewash, next door we find the town's branch of Iceland. Both sides of Derby Road have plenty of shops which never seem to end. There's more than enough for everyone here. Derby Road also has a Wetherspoons pub. This is the Sir John Borlas Warren. It's named after the 18th century MP for Nottingham, who was an admiral in the Royal Navy. He lived in Stapleford, hence the connection. This isn't the first pub to bear his name either. 2 others, the Happy Man and the Warren Arms, were also named after him and his family. Both of those, however, are now closed. Let's fast forward now to the end of Derby Road with a montage of some other shops. Well, Stapleford really is one of those towns where you don't really know where to look first. There's all sorts of retail units and shops and things. You can spend probably a couple of hours walking around if you wanted to go in every single place. I don't have time to do that, so instead we'll continue walking. We're coming to the end of the town centre now, the end of Derby Road. We'll take a left turn and start working our way back north. There's a few things like parks and the cemetery and a few other bits and bobs to see on the way back. We're still not done yet by a long way. We reconvene with the route outside another drinking establishment. This one's called the West End, and although a pub now, it used to be a club many moons ago. There is a difference. Nearby is another pub, the Midland. This one was formerly a hotel. Both pubs stand close to Stapleford's border with Sandyacre, marked of course by the River Erewash. Next for us, we need to head up Brookhill Street. That's the one that divides the 2 pubs from each other. This is a hill, and it's not in any way, shape or form shallow. Trust me, from this point onwards, the gradients get severe. On Anthill Street, off Brookhill, we find the former St Andrew's Church. This was a daughter church to St Helens, and it was built in 1908 to serve the southwestern areas of the town. It was purposely built on a slope to allow for a lower school hall. It closed in 2005 and became the Haven Church and Community Centre. A right turn takes us past another school. This is William Lilly, which apparently, according to my research, the town council have always taken a great deal of interest in. I tried to ascertain who exactly William Lilly was, but unfortunately, my best efforts on that one failed me. Balfour Road presents us with another steep gradient as we begin to make our way towards the southernmost point of our route. For the most part, this area of Stapleford is greatly residential. Landmarks are scarce, and you're surrounded on all sides by Victorian and Edwardian architecture. That is until you reach Midland Avenue, which slopes steeply downhill towards a railway line. Halfway down this, you'll pass a Catholic church. Dedicated to St John the Evangelist, it's been serving the Catholic population here for more than 140 years. This building, though, is much newer than that. As mentioned earlier, Stapleford has no railway station, but it used to. If you look across the railway behind the industrial estate on Bessel Lane, you'll be facing the former Stapleford and Sandyacre station, which served both between 1847 and 1967. It was on the Erewash Valley line, which is of course still very much in use. This industrial area isn't all that exciting, but it still has an eclectic mix of businesses, ranging from a vehicle repair shop to a gym. To leave this area behind, we have to climb uphill again, this time passing some sizable allotments. I can hear the fans cheering in the background. Effectively, the next 15 minutes of the walk was spent making my way between two parks. First up, it's Archer's Field. Soon, this green open space before us will get a bit greener. Last year, Broxtowe Borough Council began work to create 2 new woodland copses in this part of the town. That's on top of a fruit orchard that was planted in the park back in 2020. To get to the second recreation ground, we have to follow New Eaton Road back north before taking a shortcut across Brookhill Street. We're heading for the Queen Elizabeth II Park, which is smaller but has many more features. As part of Broxtowe Borough Council's Pride in Parks initiative, new play equipment was installed here in 2021. The Queen Elizabeth II Park is immensely popular with the local school children, and that should come as no surprise given that the Fairfield Spencer Academy runs along its northern edge. Although it looks big enough to be a secondary, Fairfield Spencer is a primary school catering for children of ages 4 to 11. Upon leaving, pupils from here gravitate to the George Spencer Academy, the town's former comprehensive school close to the A52. Famous former pupils of George Spencer Academy, by the way, include the screenwriter Nigel McCreary and musician Callum Burrows, better known as St Raymond. As we leave the park, we pass the Lakeside Lawn Tennis Club, which can trace its foundations back to 1977. In front of that is an oak tree, which was planted to commemorate a royal coronation, not of Queen Elizabeth II as you might have thought given the park's name, but rather King George V instead. After passing the main entrance to the school, it's a downhill stroll now along Toton Lane towards Cliff Hill Avenue. From this point onwards, landmarks become a bit more spaced out. Let's not forget Stapleford is a big place and home to lots of people. It's a good thing then there's a community centre for them all. That can be found by walking through this public car park. It's known for its dance classes apparently. Towards the end of the road is Cliff Hill House, and that's the head office of Haynes Watts. There are solicitors who have 40 offices nationwide and also 1,000 employees too. Dead opposite is a path which is part of the Erewash Valley Trail, and this will take us to Stapleford Cemetery. The allotment fans are getting their fill today, let me tell you. If you glance left at this point, there's a second patch of them. I spoil you really, don't I? So to the cemetery. The land this is on was set aside in 1878 and it was officially opened in 1881. It covers about 4 acres in total. The most striking feature in the cemetery would be the symmetrical chapel, whose gaping archway and spired tower dominates the entrance. It was gifted to the people of Stapleford in 1880 by Joseph Fairfield, a fact affirmed by a stone over the arch. The cemetery bell within it was cast in 1885 and it's still in use. Now, one thing I've yet to do here in Stapleford is leave a TVI card anywhere. I've passed a few notice boards, but none that I consider to be sort of in a public enough place. Well, a cemetery is certainly a public enough place. I imagine lots of people come here during the day, so good a place as any. We'll leave a card. That is Stapleford. Officially done. Broxtowe is down to 3. We are not quite done with this walk, however. There's about half a mile, I guess, between here and where I parked the car. So let's go and finish the walk off and see what else Stapleford has in this last section. Stapleford is definitely not a flat part of the Erewash Valley. As we return to Nottingham Road, glance southwards and you can see why the gradients have been so steep. The sheer sandstone cliff face behind these businesses is what those French prisoners of war would have had to have cut through. Next we come to St John's School. This is Grade 2 listed and was founded as a national school by Dame Caroline Warren in 1837. The building seen here today is largely unaltered from the one that was built in Victorian times, and isn't it fabulous? Its car park is separate over the road. A bit further up Nottingham Road is a food place I definitely approve of. It's Andy's Fish Bar. They must have known I was coming. Now at this point, housing wise, it's a bit different to what we've seen so far. A lot of the properties are tall townhouses with at least 3 stories, which gives Stapleford a different edge. I couldn't help but notice the statue of a knight outside one of them and wondered if it was some kind of museum. It wasn't though. As the road starts to taper off into suburbia, we pass a car showroom, Sandycliff Ford, the only landmark of note for a while. This final section proves beyond all reasonable doubt that we are in Nottinghamshire. The way to tell is to consider the name of a local sandwich shop, Cobways. A cob is Nottinghamshire speak for what Yorkshire folk call bread cakes and what normal people from Lincolnshire like me call bread buns. Cue a war in the comments. The final landmark is another school, Wadsworth Fields Primary. This school shares Wadsworth Road with the Haven Community Church, which has now moved from Anthill Street. It's all housing after this, so let's enjoy one final montage before we return to the car. And we are back to the start. If you're not from round here, folks, don't ever let anybody tell you that the East Midlands is a flat part of the country, because they've clearly never been to Stapleford, or indeed Broxtowe as a whole, because there are plenty of hills in this part of Nottinghamshire. Right, time to hop in the car and move on to the next one. To finish it all off, we leave Stapleford behind by making our way towards junction 25 of the M1 via the A52 or Brianclough Way. It's been a long time since we saw this part of the A52. The last time was way back in the Ockbrook and Erewash episode when we crossed it on foot. It connects Nottingham to Derby as well as the motorway, but it's also advantageous for those living in Stapleford too. Good transport links are definitely one reason why Stabbo is considered to be a good place to live in the vicinity of Nottingham. That's it, people. 3 to go in Broxtowe, and I'll see you down the road in the next one. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.